Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here. Hello, everyone. Hope you guys are all doing well. Welcome to Reganelite on Conflicts, episode 13. So apparently I've done 12 live streams of this kind of particular topics. So the last one I've done was about 4 or 5 months ago. Was the last time I've done a live stream like this. Because most of the Thursdays when I wasn't doing EcoFlake show or when I wasn't doing the EcoFlake show or roundtable or chat with someone, I was just doing a live stream on American politics. But it has been a while since we've done one of these, and I am going to mix it up a little bit. So we are going to watch a. So I'll explain what most of it is in the description anyway. But for those who don't know what this live stream is, so we're going to be talking and reading on certain conflicts that are taking place. We're going to watch 1 or 2 videos as well of them, reports of them, and discuss them as well. So we're going to start with Sudan, and we're going to talk about the survivors fleeing Sudan's el-Fasher recount terror, which is one of the bigger, more stories that's been taking place of the conflicts that's been a discussion. We're also going to be, again, with Al Jazeera on Myanmar. Rebels are to withdraw from 2 towns under a new China brokered truce there, and we're going to watch a video on that there on what's from Al Jazeera on that. We're then going to watch a 11-minute video, 11+ minute video from Channel 4 News' YouTube channel on inside the M23, the rebel militias that are now running Eastern DR Republic of Congo, which I think is going to be very fascinating to watch as well. We're also going to look at a live update from Israel's actions inside Gaza, because Israel has killed over 100 Palestinians in the last 24 hours. So that's happening as well. From the Associated Press, Israel raids in southern Lebanon has killed multiple employees, sparking protests there. We're also going to cover a story from Reuters saying that Afghanistan and Pakistan restart peace talks in Istanbul, sources say. And then finally, if we have time, we're going to cover a piece from the New York Times. Headlines is called "On the Front Lines of the Cartel War, Funeral Workers Carry a City's Grief." It's about basically talking about a person's grief and the damage and the insufferable damage that the Mexican cartel war is having for the lives of it. I'm not going to cover some of it, but I'm going to show a bit of the documentary from DC. From DC documentary on a bit of the war of the drug cartels, not all of it. The link for it is in the description, but it's about 25, nearly 26 minutes long as well. And I do think I'm going to cover a little bit of it as well. I'm also going to just give you guys a warning now. There will be some stuff that may be discussed. That there may be some things that I will talk about and that will find uncomfortable. When we talk about this kind of stuff, there is one where there is a picture of a dead body in one of the articles. That is in the New York Times one, but it will be. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that some of it may be a bit too much for some people. So on some of the topics we discussed, so I just want to make that very clear to you all now. So let's get started, guys, because there's a lot to cover. I don't know if we're going to cover all this in an hour and a half, but we'll see. So survivors are fleeing Sudan's el-Fasher recount terror, and bodies are in the street. Aid organizations fear that far fewer people that are hoped have been able to lead the besieged to Far City. Unfortunately, there's been lots of footage, and I have been horrifically sad to say that I have seen that footage with my own eyes on certain social media outlets of the rapid support forces who have taken el-Fasher and have killed countless people, and it's absolutely horrific. And this, what's happening in Sudan, with especially what's happened here in el-Fasher, more than anything, there is in part, while in part I do blame the UAE for their backing of the rapid support forces in this, because they have fueled the RSF by supplying them with weapons, drones, and equipment, and have helped them fuel their war against the SDF, the Sudanese armed forces, in this civil war. I also want to make it clear that I do, in a part as well, I have a lot of anger about Israel because Israel have indirectly affected this war as well. And what do I mean by that? So we knew that there were reports. There's been countless reports of the RSF and even the government army. Even though I've not seen evidence of it, but we know that there has been by the Rapid Support Forces and by their army that they have purged villages, ethnic cleansing, because of. We know that has been happening. There's been reports of it and whatnot, but up to this point, there was no real video footage shared by the Rapid Support Forces of showcasing what they've been doing. Like actual footage of them from their social medias or their telegrams and whatnot, showcasing the killings that they are doing. That changed. That changed when they captured el-Fasher. And I blame Israel for this change, because we know that Israel have been allowed to get away with so much for the past 2 years because of what happened there. And because of what happened there, for almost 2 years, every other conflict, every other tribe, every other militia, every other terrorist organization, they would have all looked at Israel and how it's conducted itself in Gaza, and it's time and time again broken international law and has faced no repercussions whatsoever. So all these organizations, all these terrorist groups, these tribes, these conflicts and wars, everyone who has seen what Israel have done, do you know what they see? They say, if they can do it, why can't we? And that's exactly what the RSF have done here. That's exactly what they have done here as a direct result. Because they, from their point of view, for the Rapid Support Forces' point of view, they see it as, we're not going to face any punishment. So why should we follow the rules of engagement from international laws? Why does it matter anymore? We should just post whatever we want and be proud of it and all that kind of stuff. All because it all started because of Israel, which in turn started because of America, because America never tuned them in. So, yeah. Oh, I didn't say hello to everyone. I do apologise. Jane, good to see you there. Hope you're doing well. Stephen Banker, Jao, one of our moderators. Pete Music, Christina there. Good to see you there. Person impersonator. Indie Duck there. I see you there in the chat, and anybody else there. They reported Sudan here, and it's not faint-hearted. Lots of violence and level of barbarism. Yeah, they've done a lot of reporting recently, only recently, because of this capture and because the RSF have bragged about what they've done. Because they bragged and they put it all over social media what they have done, mainstream media couldn't ignore this story. They couldn't ignore the story because it was so blatant. I saw a video from Breaking Points, and that they showed a satellite image of one neighborhood of a town in el-Fasher. Satellite image, and they could see the blood where people were murdered, which is insane. People who have fled the western city of el-Fasher in war-torn Sudan are recounting scenes of horrific violence at the hands of the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. As aid workers say, they fear only a fraction of the besieged city residents have managed to escape. The RSF has killed at least 1,500 people in el-Fasher, capital of North Darfur State, seizing it on Sunday. According to Sudan Doctors Network, including at least 460 out of hospital in the widely condemned massacre. More than 36,000 people have fled since Saturday, largely on foot, to Taiwan, the town around 70 kilometers, 43 miles west, that is already sheltering roughly 650,000 displaced people. Hayat, a mother of 5 children, told the AFP news agency via satellite phone that 7 RSF fighters ransacked her home, searched her undergarments, and killed her 16-year-old son right in front of her. As she fled with neighbours, we saw many dead bodies lying on the ground and wounded people left behind in the open because their families couldn't carry them, she recalled. Another survivor named Hussein was wounded by shelling but made it to Tijuana with the help of her family carrying her mother on a donkey cart. There was one video footage I recall was they were driving in jeeps, the RSF, literally chasing people and having fun with it, watching the people flee before they killed them as well. The situation in el-Fasher is so terrible, dead bodies in the street, and no one to bury them, he said. We're grateful we made it here, even if we only have the clothes that we were wearing. Ishma Asmal, another displaced person from el-Fasher, recounted to the Associated Press news agency. Shelling and drone attacks were happening all the time. They hit us with the back of the rifles day and night unless we hid in the houses. At 3 in the morning, we sneak outside the houses till we arrive in Hisset Hasilia area in North Darfur, where we were looted. They left us with nothing. I came here barefooted. Even my shoes were taken. Al Jazeera's Hibar Morgan, reporting from Khartoum, said thousands of people are continuing to flee el-Fasher. She started the Sudan's Doctors Network, which tracks the country's civil war, as saying at least 15,000 people have arrived to Taiwan in the past 48 hours alone. Many of them are in desperate need of medical assistance as a result of walking for days without food and water and suffering injuries, Morgan said. Meferand Rue, advocate manager of Norwegian Refugee Council, which manages the Taiwan camp, told the Associated Press that the number of people who made it to Taiwan is very small. Where are the others, she said? That tells the horror of this journey. Literally, a genocide is... I fear a genocide is literally taking place there right now. I don't think yet, because this is Al Jazeera, I do not expect to see horrific things from this clip, guys. But... obviously, of course, we are talking about Sudan here, so viewers' discretion is advised. But I don't think we're going to see anything too horrific because Al Jazeera are a pretty respectable media outlet, guys. If it plays. Did play earlier. Don't do this to me. I reset my computer because it was slow this morning.
These are some of the people who made it to Tawila after escaping el-Fasher in Sudan's North Darfur state. They fled the city after the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces took control on Sunday after months of siege and relentless attacks. It's taken days of walking to get here. Some of them are wounded, some of them elderly, some of them children.
People are tired and hungry. We've left people behind, some of them alive and some of them dead. Some are asking for water to drink, and we ourselves haven't had food or water for more than a day.
This mobile footage shows what those in Tawila are escaping from. The video reportedly shows RSF fighters executing civilians in a hospital.
In a hospital. Yeah, in a hospital, on deathbed and whatnot. Nope, just shooting them, no questions asked.
The World Health Organization says there are reports more than 460 people were killed in the hospital attack. El-Fasher was the last major army stronghold in the West.
This footage here, I've seen the a huge majority of these, a lot of these people were killed. You see sitting there. They were killed, literally, later on in the video. But obviously they're not showing the full clip for obvious reasons. But these people who are literally harmless, they were killed. They literally killed them.
Western Darfur region. The army withdrew after the RSF took
I don't know if they killed everyone, but I know they killed a good chunk of them.
Over its headquarters, leaving behind more than 250,000 people. El-Fasher's Resistance Committee, a group which has been providing services, says many of those who were trapped in the city have been killed. At least 4,000 people have made it to Tawila since Sunday.
On the road, there are a lot of corpses and dead bodies. If they suspect you of being a soldier, they would kill you. We faced a lot of difficulty on the road with no food and water and have been eating from the trees.
Tawila was already struggling with previous waves of displacement from el-Fasher, and little to no humanitarian aid is available. The new wave of people arriving here is putting a strain on an already struggling displaced community. There may be little here to survive on, but for those who've made it, the chances of staying alive here is much higher than staying behind and facing the RSF.
Yeah, that is one of the fundamental things, is that there's a high probability. Now, obviously, as she said in her, for her perspective, of some were let go, but obviously some were not so lucky. So she was fortunate enough that and her groups where that fled that weren't chased down and shot down, but others weren't so lucky because some of them are much more vile. But I would say they're all the same. The United Nations humanitarian chief Tom Fletcher warned the catastrophic levels of human suffering has descended into an even darker hell in el-Fasher. In an address to the UN Security Council, which has held an emergency meeting in the situation in Sudan on Thursday, they've already held it. Fletcher expressed alarm over reports of mass killing by the RSF, saying the horror is continuing with utter impunity. Raising the alarm over dire humanitarian situation in Tiwala, he noted that the area is already hosting hundreds of thousands of people displaced by the previous attack and is now at breaking point. Those who attempted to flee to Tenua to the southwest face extortion, rape, while men have been abducted or killed on the road, Fletcher said. According to him, attempts to bring in aid have been blocked by the RSF. Yeah, the RSF do not want any outside interference. The United Nations moved to approve a $20 billion allocation for Sudan from the Central Emergency Response Fund to help scale up response efforts in Tawala and elsewhere in Darfur. UN Secretary spokesperson Stefan Durek said on Wednesday. The UN was horrified by the slaughter of more than 450 people at a Saudi hospital where patients, health workers and residents had sought shelter. Elderly people, the wounded and those with disabilities remained stranded and unable to flee the area, she said. Shana Lewis, a Sudan specialist, told Al Jazeera that the massacre of civilians was most devastating because we in civil society have been warning the international community for over a year about the atrocities risks that the civilian population in North Darfur. For 18 months before Sudan's army withdrew from the city, an RSF siege had trapped hundreds of thousands of people trapped inside without food or essentials. Yes, this has been... I even remember we was talking about this for a while as well. And while my position was obviously a case of, like, we need to stop this before it gets too out of hand. But it just felt like that the international community was more fixated on what was happening in Ukraine and what was happening in Israel and Gaza rather than this. Although there was conversation about this, and it just felt like that the world is now only paying attention to this because there's not so much eyes on Gaza now because of the so-called ceasefire, and because of this horrific massacre, the international community has to respond to this. What most astonishing, Lewis said, was the ability to see the bloodshed from outer space, which is why I said the pictures images I've mentioned I've seen. Yale's Humanitarian Research Lab reportedly satellite imagery shows clusters of objects consistent with human bodies and large areas of red discolorization on the ground. Which, of course, I don't want to show you that. But that is the current situation in Sudan. I know there was an urgent question today in Parliament today in the UK on it as well. I know, as it says in there, the UN had a meeting as well, but whether or not it can be taken and turned into action is another thing. I hope something gets done, but as of right now, I just feel like it's kind of like everyone says that it's like, for me, I'm looking at it from the outside, like, and all these organizations and everything, is just everyone's saying this is absolutely terrible, this is absolutely tragic. So my question is, what are we doing about it? What are we doing about it? There's a lot of blame on the UAE, and rightfully so. There's been organizations have been calling to boycott the United Arab Emirates completely because of their connections to the RSF. They've continuously denied that they've been supporting them, despite the fact there's been evidence showcasing otherwise. So they are just, I think the blood is just as much on their hands here as much as it is on the Rapid Support Forces. For those wondering why the UAE supports the RSF, and it's all about influence. They're back in other African conflicts as well. It's all about them gaining influence. That's what it's all about. And it's infuriating to say the least there. Yeah, there are unfortunately a lot of sick people in the world, and this is another conflict in doing so. I will obviously try to keep up with short videos as much as I can, and obviously when we do our good mornings, we'll see what Al Jazeera and whatnot are saying about this conflict as we come along, guys. But this is not a live stream of this is not an uncomfortable live stream talking about these conflicts anyway. That is for sure. The next story I've got for you guys is one from Myanmar. Although this one was yesterday, to be fair, so it wasn't too far off. But this, I had to use Al Jazeera because there is no other. All the other news outlets, most of the news outlets I was looking at were saying like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. So this was probably the best I could find, the latest on Myanmar here, guys. So Myanmar was to withdraw from 2 towns under a new China brokered truce. The Tangyang National Liberation Army said it will pull out of the ruby mining town of Musk and nearby Mosques. So China obviously are trying to... China, obviously, one of the things that they are doing in all of this, they're just manipulating all sides of this. It's not just them manipulating the Chinese Judo military. It's all about the different factions within the country, because the country is very much split right now because of the civil war. And China taking its opportunities here, and this is another example of it here. We'll come to a video in a moment on this as well, but I'll read a bit more into this, guys. So, an armed rebel group in Myanmar said he has reached a truce with the military-run government to stop months of heavy clashes in the country's north. The Tangyang National Liberation Army, the TNLA, announced on Tuesday it had signed an agreement with Myanmar's government following several days of China-mediated talks in Kunming, roughly 400 kilometers, that's 248 miles from the Myanmar border. I do have a bit of reflux, so do bear with me, guys. Under the deal, the TNLA said it withdrew from Mosque, the ruby mining center in the upper Mandalay region, the neighboring town of Mobex in northern part of the Shan state. Though it did not provide a timeline, both rebel forces and government troops will stop advancing starting Wednesday, he added. The group also said the military, which has not yet commented on the agreement, has agreed to halt airstrikes. The TNLA is part of a Free Brotherhood alliance, which also includes the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army and the Ark-Rain Alliance. They have been fighting for decades for greater autonomy from Myanmar's central government and are loosely allied with pro-democracy resistant groups that emerged after the army deposed the elected government seized power in February 2021. Like I said, there's multiple different armies and militia groups here, so it's a very complicated, complex war here. And it's not just obviously factions, obviously as well. You have to tie in religion and ethnic groups here to this as well. Since October 2023, the alliance has captured and controlled significant swathes of northeast Myanmar and western Myanmar. The TNLA alone seized 12 towns in an offensive. They advanced slow following a series of China brokered ceasefires earlier this year, allowing the army to retake major cities, including Laskio City in April and Narokisco in July, as well as Kamyun and Hisbal in October. We'll come to the video in a minute. China is a central power broker in the civil war in Myanmar, where it has major geopolitical and economic interests. Yep, as I said, they want access to the Indian Ocean through them. That's one of the because that benefits them from a trading point of perspective. Beijing has opened back the military government this year. Openly backed the military government this year as it hopes its battles to shore up territory before an election stated for November, which it hopes will stabilise and help legitimize its rule. It's not a fair rule. They took over the country against the will of the people. However, the polls are expected to be blocked in large rebel-held areas, and many international observers have dismissed them as a tactic to master continuing military rule. Yeah, this election is nothing but is folly, especially when you're literally in the middle of a civil war and you're calling it an election. It's just bollocks. It's absolute bollocks is what it is, guys. So let's play this clip here of what is actually happening on the ground here as well, guys. Let's hope this one plays all right as well.
Early morning mist gives cover to these fighters patrolling Mobi, a contested village in eastern Myanmar. Once the weather clears, the skies open to the military's new strategy, drones. As the fighters take shelter, there's an explosion nearby where 2 fighters have been injured.
In the past, the junta's strategy was to send soldiers first when they attacked. Now they send drones first and then soldiers follow.
Drone warfare has become central to the conflict in Myanmar, with both sides using them to carry out attacks. They've been crucial to the successes of the fighters, including pushing junta troops out of large areas in northern Myanmar. Now, the military is adopting similar tactics. It's using Chinese and Russian-made drones to launch mortar and guide artillery strikes.
We don't know the type of drones that the military are using, but these drones are using advanced technology. Their drones can fly higher than ours. Their drones can fly between 1,500 meters to 2,000 meters, and our drone jammers can't cover them.
Myanmar plunged into crisis after the military seized power in 2021. Since then, the junta has been battling several opposition and ethnic groups, as well as civilians calling for a democratic state. The UN says the conflict in Kaya state alone has forced more than 130,000 people from their homes. Luezar is one among them, displaced for a fifth time in just the past few years.
Fifth time, guys.
Before the coup, our family was poor, but we had good living conditions in our own house, and we could store rice from our fields. After that, we lost everything in the war. My husband said we used to be human, but now we're like dogs.
4 years into this conflict, drones have proven crucial in a war that's driven more than 3.5 million people from their homes, nearly half of them in the past year alone. Kulsum Sharif, Al Jazeera.
The thing that really infuriates me is as well is when you are whatever side of the spectrum of these conflicts, especially you see the likes of China and Russia gleefully looking at this as an opportunity for them to make money out of this. And when you are in these desperate situations, whatever they may be, you're prepared to buy from anyone to enable that will benefit you. And that's exactly what the Russians have done, selling drones as well as China have benefited from this war as well. But China won't let this conflict be something that will disrupt their trading routes here. This is, and also who also takes full advantage of these conflicts as we continue to talk about them and watch about them as well, are the private companies, the private manufacturers, private armed businesses, and there's a lot of them out there, who are making a boon over this. And this is the second time we've heard the word drones. Drones are becoming a really powerful, really are the weapon that armies and governments and military bodies, militias, terrorist organizations, they're going after them. They want them. They want those drones because those drones saves them a soldier or a life being lost. Those drones can be the difference maker in battle. And you can see a drone warfare literally being built up here in Myanmar just from this. Because a drone doing a strike rather than a human is beneficial for them. The war economy, this is what this is. This is a war economy, not for the benefit of any people whatsoever, but for the benefit of people who make weapons, make these drones, who make missiles, who make weapons of destruction, and make a profit off the bodies of those who die. And that's exactly what this is, guys. Where does the evil come from within these animals? It's all beyond my fathom. There is a lot of complications in terms of Myanmar. It's a very complex history. Obviously, Myanmar, obviously known as Burma to still some people. It's a very complex history, and I can't say that before the military Judah taking over in 2021. I can't say that the country was perfect. It certainly wasn't. It was still had its fragilities, of course. But one thing that people do want is some peace and stability, which is something that is very hard for many people to come by in this. And many people just want to be able to live their lives. But we also know that a lot of propaganda, religion, discrimination, a lot of that is still playing a factor into why so many of these conflicts take place as well. You know, the lots of the massacres and genocides is to do with religion or certain tribes. certain people in Sudan, which is why the massacres are happening there. This is why so many there were mass reports of mass killings by the military Judah on certain ethnic groups in Myanmar, in the Rakhine state, I believe it was, where many had to flee to Thailand for their own safety as well. I believe it was Muslims. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. It's just these beliefs that people who have a certain belief or a certain religion, or if they're born a certain race or whatnot, it's just turned into hatred, and then people take advantage of that hatred, and that's exactly what this is, guys. As for when this war is going to end, I just don't have an answer, guys. It's another one that I just don't see ending anytime soon, and it's just like, it's there, it's still happening, and people still don't want to talk about it. So next, guys, we're going to be watching a documentary together. I've already watched it. I really think this is really fascinating. Yes, I'm not gonna lie, I am piggybacking off the back of okay. My partner just messaged me. I know I'm piggybacking off the back of Channel 4 News' video here, but I think this is worth sharing with you guys for those who haven't seen it, especially when they had exclusive access inside the country. So, for those who don't know, there's been a war inside the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the M23 took over recently one of the towns. And it's a very interesting perspective of what's actually happening inside the rebel, inside, and how the M23, the rebel militia, are running the Eastern DR Congo, and how it's perceived here by this video. Now, obviously, Channel 4 are very neutral here, but I would say that based on this, don't take everything is for granted on everything that you watch and what you hear here, because obviously, when a group like the M23 have done some horrific and barbaric things, which the UN have claimed they have done, which they have denied, and I want to stress this, I've not actually seen footage of the M23 doing this. I want to stress that, but the fact that it's coming from the UN does give it quite strong credibility that they have done some of these atrocities. But it's hard to say that for sure. But I would just kindly say that yes, this is a Channel 4 video, but do take it with a pinch of salt as well. I do want to stress that, but I will stop in parts to respond to parts of this as well. So let's have a watch, guys.
In Eastern Congo, M23 rebels have become rulers. Millions of people now live under their control. It's a war Donald Trump claims to have ended.
The Congo, we settled the Congo with Rwanda. That was a machete war. That was a gruesome war. Many people, close to 10 million people killed. We got that settled.
But M23 say their fight is far from over.
Celui qui veut nous faire la guerre, eh bien qu'il vient nous enterrer ici chez nous.
And civilians continue to pay the price.
Sina mpango wa kurudia nyuma. Vita ikingali sana.
We've been granted access to the vast territory M23 now controls. Goma, home to over 1 million people. It sits right on the border with Rwanda. 8 months ago, we were here just after M23 captured the city, following a fierce battle with the Congolese government forces.
You can see at the time when they took the city, many people were very happy. The public were, it seemed like the people were very, very happy to have the M23 rebel militia take over. On the face of it, that's what it looks like here. The people were convinced. The people were convinced that these are the, and not and clearly distrust with the current government.
Goma became the seat of power for the rebels and their political allies, the Congo River Alliance. At that time, Hundreds of thousands of people had been sheltering here in some of Africa's largest refugee camps. Now, those camps have gone, and a new normal is taking shape.
It's quite fascinating to know that so many people were living on the outskirts of the city, and since the rebel militia have taken over, so many of them, it's fascinating to know that everyone's been allowed to come back in and be able to have some kind of normality, that there's not gun violence, there's not violence here from the face of it here. Bear in mind, this video was put out on the 29th, so this was yesterday, just for reference here, guys.
Aside from enforcing security, the new rulers collect taxes, build roads, and lead clean-up campaigns. We meet Goma's new mayor, flanked by M23 soldiers. He is part of a military-appointed administration determined to project a cleaner image to the world.
La population de Goma va témoigner que maintenant la ville elle est stable. La ville elle est sécurisée. Maintenant, comme on a stabilisé la ville, le deuxième chose c'est le développement. Et le développement, on a commencé par l'assainissement. On doit rendre la ville propre.
Life in
I don't know if this is being staged just because Channel 4 are there. I don't think it's staged, but I could be wrong. But it certainly does. But from the video, it looks as if the impression that we have from this is that they actually are trying to rebuild the lives of these people, to rebuild this city. And obviously the reaction of how people felt when they came in was joyful. So, I mean, again, you have to, we don't know because we've not there on the ground, obviously. So we can only take the information that we see, guys.
Goma might be cleaner and safer than it was just months ago. But the Congolese government has frozen the banks, meaning cash is scarce. The city's airport, scene of the deadliest fighting, stands silent. Oscar Balinda, an M23 spokesman, takes us on a tour.
As you can see, here we have the Sukhoi, the fighter jet. Before it belongs to the government.
But now this belongs to you?
Yes, we saved it.
M23 wasn't just battling government forces here, but also UN peacekeepers. The UN's mission in Congo, known as MONUSCO, is the longest and most expensive peacekeeping operation in history. Its mandate was, and on paper still is, to prevent armed groups like M23 from taking over.
Well, they obviously failed to do that. That cost the UN a lot of money. And it does raises questions about the UN here, about are they on the wrong side of all of this? Like, from the position of it, it's as if they shouldn't, they didn't want them to be here. But it's very, again, like I did say at the start of this, to take it with a pinch of salt.
Viewed with deep suspicion by the rebels, they must now operate on M23's terms. Why is the airport not in operation now?
There are some mines. The UN promised, the MONUSCO promised to remove them. Even now they haven't started to remove them. But also we need the equipment for the tower. Yeah.
After that, can you open the airport and run it, or
Yes,
the government in
sure.
Kinshasa won't allow you to do it?
No, we can do it.
You can do it.
Yes.
Can they? Can they really? Claiming their mines in the airport. I mean, I don't know, but that's what he's saying. That's what the spokesperson is saying. Again, yeah. And Andy Duck Meddy's right. I don't trust them being joyful. My friend survived once. I once laughing with Hulu that killed someone, so not be killed himself. But I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, I listen. Like I said, you got to take all this with a pinch of salt. The Channel 4 are just documenting what they've seen from their perspective here. You know, we have to just you take it in the information that we have to the best of our abilities. And I do think this is important for us to understand. there's over 100 conflicts taking place on the continent of Africa. And I might even actually tell you every single conflict. I might even go run through the conflict, because I actually asked Grok to break down some of the conflicts that I wasn't aware of as well, which was as well. But there's so many going on, and I just can't cover everything, unfortunately. But let's carry on, guys, because I do want to give this. I do find this fascinating, but at the same time, like, is this what the people want at the end of the day? I just want the people to be happy, to be able to have their lives and not get killed and massacred and whatnot. I just want them to be able to live their lives, eat food, pay their taxes, just have a life, have a decent life. That's one thing we want from all of them, regardless of militias, factions, governments. That's the one thing that I want to see from them, is to be able to the ordinary people to be able to have lives. And understandably so. When we saw all those tents, that's not a life. Sleeping outside the city, in these tents and whatnot. They're not doing that now, allegedly. So,
M23's rule stretches far beyond the city. They now govern more than 10 million people in the Kivu regions of eastern Congo. As we travel through their territory, some signs of improvement are visible. We drove on this very same road in February this year, and the condition was horrendous. It took us about 9 hours to travel about 60 kilometers. But now it takes about 2 hours. Oscar Balinda, this time in civilian clothes, gets the crowd singing. In the battle for hearts and minds, the rebels are keen to project themselves as champions of the people. But in the eyes of the Congolese government, these fighters are simply puppets of neighboring Rwanda, here to plunder the region's minerals. The conflict's roots run deep when colonial-era borders divided ethnic communities. M23 are led by Tutsis, the same ethnic group targeted in the 1994 Rwandan genocide.
Yeah, this is why people are concerned. This is the main This is the main crux of all of this, and rightfully so. Why the UN are concerned. And it's also as a part of this, it's like, do they not remember what happened?
They claim they are protecting Congolese Tutsis from similar persecution. According to the UN and international observers, Rwanda supports the rebels with funding, weapons, and even troops, which Rwanda denies. All sides in the conflict have been accused of a range of serious human rights abuses. Further north, fighting continues in the countryside that was once the breadbasket of Congo. Donald Trump said he stopped what he called the machete war in the DRC. But I'm here in Masisi in the east of the country, and 20 miles to the north, the fighting between the M23 rebels and pro-government soldiers is still ongoing. At the local hospital, the wounds of war are still being treated. International organizations like MSF keep the health system running.
So you'll see when we come to our service, it is usually overwhelmed. We try to do the best that we can.
Dr. James Garner says the wards are still overflowing. The front line is not very far from here, so are you still getting people?
Last week we received 10 violent trauma cases in quite a short time period.
Among the injured, Odetta Nzabimana and her family. They were hit by shrapnel when a bomb exploded near their home. One of their children was killed in the blast.
Kuchiwanja na sisi tulikuwa tunajichinga masasu juu ya manyumba, ikanikutania pale, kapiga migulu miwili na mototi na kata mtumbu na papai lupande yote na mtoto hii mkichwa na mwingine litosha hiki chote alikufa ule. Tulikuwa pamoja pale. Sina mpango wa kurudia nyuma. Vita ikingali sana.
In the children's ward, dozens of babies wait for urgent care. Insecurity is driving severe malnutrition, even in a region perfect for farming.
The fragile security situation makes it very difficult for somebody to tend to their land. You have very fertile land, but if you're not in the security situation to plant and harvest, then it becomes really difficult to feed yourself and your family.
The stories.
This is one of the problems, is that for this is a country that continuously suffers not just from the corruption, not just the corruption, guys. It's just the thing that really, like, this is a continuous cycle for these people, and a lot of them, it's just a case of just trying to survive. You know, we here talk about, and it's this inside access into Congo reminds us of, just like, for all the complaints that we have where we are and the problems that we all have, it's nothing compared to what these people have to go through each and every single day. And we're talking about a country that is very, very poor. People are barely able to make the money they need, and as is rightly said here, they can grow the food they need to grow in order to feed themselves. The problem is that there are too many people who are too greedy, too corrupt, and want things all for themselves as much as they want to. People want to live, I guess, and it does not matter who rules them as long as they can live. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. That's the one thing I want from this, from someone sitting on the outside. For them, I want them to be able to have a life that they can be happy and be content with. But again, it's down to greed, corruption, and it's also down to tribes and ethnicities and all ethnicities and certain religions and all that kind of stuff. All that again plays a part in why these wars and these conflicts take place, guys, as well.
We hear in Masisi reveal the relentless suffering of civilians, but without a political solution, the fighting will continue.
There is no political solution right now, because one of the big problems is that we have, and we hear this all the time, is that Africa as a continent is not something that America and Europe take enough interest into doing to help them. And how many times have we talked about here? How many times have you heard from other YouTubers, or Graham Hughes in particular, who has been to every single country, How many times has he, when in the past, spoken about the responsibility of the British Empire, of the French kingdoms, of when Europe conquered most of Africa? What have we done apart from left them to their own devices? We drew up these countries. We drew the lands. Not even they did. And we've just sat back and allowed this to happen. Yeah, there have been organisations and government spokespersons saying, oh, we're helping funding these sort of things and whatnot. But it's just because of the continent and its minerals that it's had, it just gets plundered by greedy people. And once again, innocent people are the ones who suffer in all of this. And this is another example of it.
Footage published by M23 shows thousands of fresh recruits to be deployed to the front lines. They're the latest wave of men caught up in an endless cycle of violence. We sat down with M23's president, Bertrand Bisimwa. Sanctioned by both the US and EU, he sees himself as a liberator of the Congolese people.
Nous n'avons jamais eu de prétentions territoriales. Notre lutte, ce n'est pas de capturer les entités. Ce que nous faisons aujourd'hui, c'est de créer une zone où tous les Congolais peuvent se sentir libres, sécurisés, où ils peuvent exercer leurs activités tranquillement.
There was a report by the UN in July that
accused your forces of committing mass killings. There was another report in August by Human Rights Watch that says your forces executed 140 people in different villages. What's your response?
Aucune de ces organisations qui nous accusent des crimes n'a été sur le terrain pour attester ces crimes-là. Aucune.
Well, it's entirely possible that those people may be killed, those who were down on there. They have people everywhere, these organisations. So am I to understand that, like, do I honestly believe that these organisations, these highly respected organisations, you're going to tell me that all of them are wrong and yet you are right? It's very hard for me to believe that. He says none of them have been on the ground. Well, it's entirely possible those people may have been killed. And it's not like they don't have witnesses as well. Obviously, it's hard. It's obviously... One of the ways they do it is just obviously making sure there's no witnesses to atrocities occurred. But I find it very hard to believe here. We have the M23 president speaking here, saying that this is not happening. That there's no proof and evidence of this. Excuse me. Greed, one of the deadliest sins. It is one of the deadliest sins. I do apologise for the burping, guys. It is my refluxes, so I do apologise. It's not intentional.
Nous faisons face à un front médiatique de la part du régime de Kinshasa et certaines organisations internationales qui sont à sa solde.
I would say more international is under. I would say more international is supporting the regime rather than the other way around, me personally.
The Kinshasa government does not control this part of the country, but it remains the only authority recognized by the international community. M23 weren't even part of the Trump peace agreement between the DRC and Rwanda, signed in June.
That's great.
It's a deal that's done nothing to change the reality on the ground.
Yeah, Donald Trump, well, it's Donald Trump, for crying out loud. What do we expect?
Very important.
The Congolese government, meanwhile, has reportedly offered American companies access to critical mining sites, some of which are under M23's control. Would you welcome US companies doing business here?
Bien, vous savez, nous, dans notre vision, nous voulons faire de la RDC une terre d'opportunité, un business land, où nous pouvons partager les intérêts avec le monde. Nous sommes prêts aujourd'hui à traiter avec tout celui qui peut venir ou qui pourrait entrer dans un partenariat gagnant-gagnant avec le Congo, mais pourvu que ce partenariat résolve les problèmes de nos populations.
What is your message to the Western world?
Nous n'avons pas un autre pays à part celui-ci. C'est l'unique pays que Dieu nous a donné et nous comptons les défendre. Ce sont nos terres qui appartenaient à nos parents, qui appartenaient à nos ancêtres. Celui qui veut nous faire la guerre, eh bien qu'il vienne nous enterrer ici chez nous. Nous n'irons nulle part et nous l'assumons avec fierté.
The people of Eastern Congo are no strangers to war. M23's rule is secure for now, but their long-term objectives seem unclear. If a genuine path to peace with the Congolese government cannot be found, the rebels' road could lead to the capital, Kinshasa itself.
That would be quite. It may seem impossible right now, but it's certainly possible in the long term if they are continuing. If they can continue to push the government back. I don't know if it will go that far. I don't know, but I thought this was a very great video by Channel 4 to really give us a bit of an insight into what's happening here inside the M23, because I have covered short videos and I have talked about it in the past, but I thought this was really insightful about what's actually happening inside the town of Goma, and I thought it was fascinating to say the least there. But it is a conflict that is one that will, I don't think it will ever end. I just think I think it's a conflict that will carry on long. Like for me, it feels like a conflict that will have to continuously go on long after I'm dead. That's how I feel about it. When the situation is so blurry like this, I will only trust the civilians. Well, it's hard to know. It's hard because and the other question is, how do you know you're talking to a civilian? How do you know you're not talking to someone who's on a certain side? You don't know. You don't know. I'd look. In all seriousness, like I want there to peace. I want people to have a content life. You know, I really mean that, and I sincerely hope that. But I did find it fascinating for sure, and I hope you guys found it fascinating too, because I thought it was an interesting one to share. Continuing on, guys. Wow, we've already got an hour through. I'm not gonna dwell too much on Israel and Gaza because we kind of talk about it a lot anyway. But I'm just gonna show you the live feed from Middle Eastern Eye on this, guys. So, oh well, I guess they've talked about the live footage. Israel bombs Gaza and southern Lebanon. Netanyahu insists he's acting within the bounds of the ceasefire deal. I'm actually gonna not cover the Associated Press story now because they put it here in the live feed here. Ultra-Orthodox Jews protest against compulsory draft in Jerusalem. So there's been a massive protest within central Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem. With I've actually seen some footage, not too far before I went live, of protesters. People are against the conscription of being conscribed to joining the IDF. So many people are not happy. Many people are really much against it. So yeah, there is still this. Just because the so-called ceasefire is on, doesn't mean that there's everyone's all happy sort of thing. Turkish disaster response team is awaiting Israel's approval to enter Gaza. Turkish disaster response team, right? The Gaza's death polls has surpassed 68,600 here. So this is about an hour ago, according to them. Turkish President Erdogan criticised Germany, what he said was ignorance of Israel's genocide and attacks in Gaza in a joint new conference with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz on Thursday. The opening friction between NATO allies has emerged on Merz's first visit to the Turkish state since taking office. He said his government has stood by Israel since October the 7th Hamas-led attack on Israel, and he believes it was exercising its right to self-defense. Quote, it would have taken only one decision to avoid countless unnecessary casualties. Hamas should have released their hostages earlier and laid down its arms, he said, adding he hoped the war coming to an end with the US brokered and Turkey backed ceasefire deal. It's not as simple as that. It's not as simple as that, and we know it's not as simple as that. Hundreds of thousands of ultra-Orthodox men filled Jerusalem today with a demonstration against the Israeli state demands to enlist them into the army and the arrest of draft dodgers. The protest described earlier this week as demonstrations of the millennium was a rare show of unity from all of Israel's ultra-Orthodox factions, but was marred by the death of a 15-year-old who fell from a construction site. Yesterday, rabbis of Chabad, an ultra-Orthodox faction with no political identification, issued a call to participate in the prayer and a cry rally in Jerusalem. Today, all the ultra-Orthodox factions come together. Yearly Hesketh 20 told Middle Eastern Eye at the demonstration, we will not enlist in the army under any circumstances. This was 2 hours ago. Local reports in Gaza indicated on Thursday evening local time that Israeli airstrikes and tank fire are targeting Khan Yunis in the south of the enclave. Now, other mainstream media outlets were not reporting this. Only Al Jazeera and Middle Eastern Eye have reported this. So I've not seen this from America. I tried to have a look on at the time when I was looking up the stuff. It may be different now, but I was checking like news websites on America and the UK, and they weren't mentioning this at all. This comes as Israel has insisted it is still upholding the US guaranteed ceasefire, but with the caveat that it can fire in self-defense at any time. Right? What's self-defense? What do you mean? What does that mean? And then 3 were wounded in Lebanon after strikes in Shaba. What did I say about Lebanon as well, guys? The Lebanese Health Ministry said on Thursday that 3 people had been wounded after Israeli airstrikes targeted Shabila in southern Lebanon as well. Israel raided a terrorist infrastructure, apparently. A rocket launch platform, a tunnel entrance affiliated with the terrorist Hezbollah. The Israeli military Arab Lang spokesperson said on X early in the day while sharing video of the strikes. Quote, the presence of this infrastructure in the area constitutes a violation of the understanding between Israel and Lebanon, he added. Just hours prior, a munitional worker was shot to death by Israeli soldiers who stormed a local government building in Bibia. A worker was shot to death. During a nearly year-old ceasefire agreement between Israel and Lebanon, Israel's mounted attacks on Lebanon more than 5,100 times, Lebanese media has reported. This is how they treat ceasefires. They just continuously still do what they do, guys. France sent civilians, military teams to plans to post gas fire flays as well there. Also, the other story as well, that Israel has received captive bodies. This was 4 hours ago. The Red Cross had handed over bodies of 2 Israeli captives to the Israeli army, and Shin Bet, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has confirmed. And the remains will be transferred to Israel's National Forensic Institute for identification. The effort of the return to abductees continue will not stop until the last of the abductees have returned, the statement reads there. So they've got some more bodies, but there's still more to be recovered there as well, guys. So, yes. Right, as I said, we're not going to... I'm going to go... yeah, I'm going to go to this story next, guys. Yep, yeah, they are a bunch of lies, that is indeed. Yeah, they are indeed. Just before I go to the next story, guys, I want to say, if you haven't already, please consider hitting the like button, sharing this across social media, subscribe if you haven't too already. Do check out Rumble and Patreon content that I drop every day, Monday to Friday at 12 o'clock as well. And if you want to financially support me in the work that I do here, you can leave a super chat down below or join the YouTube membership for as little as 99p if you can as well. All that kind of stuff really does help support me in the work that I do here. So thank you to everyone and anyone who is listening. It's greatly appreciated. This next one here is, well, I'm optimistic, but I'm like cautioned as well, this one here. So Reuters reported about 3 hours ago that Afghanistan and Pakistan restart peace talks in Istanbul. Sources say, their sources are saying this, okay? So this has been, we know that there's been conflict on the borders between the two sides for a good while now. For several weeks, this has been happening. Several weeks this has been going on. There have been clashes on the border between the two sides, and we also know as well that many people in Pakistan who are of Afghan nationality have been sent off as well, have been kicked out of the country, packing back to Afghanistan, and many people who have basically been born and raised in Pakistan as Afghanistan's who fled the country during the Russian invasion of the country as well. There's a huge contingent of people who have been exiled out of Pakistan into Afghanistan as well because of the government there as well, and that's obviously created even more tension, as if the tensions on the border were not enough. And it seems here that they're trying to restart peace talks, which I would like to think, yeah, does work out, but this is another conflict that really doesn't, again, not one that's really too much talked about, again, because of where it's geographically located as well. So Afghanistan and Pakistan have resumed peace talks in Istanbul, for familiar sources with the matter said on Thursday, a day after Islamabad said the discussions had ended in failure. So it said 3 of the sources said the nations had recommended talks at the request of mediators Turkey and Qatar to ensure that they do not resume border clashes that have killed dozens this month. One of the sources, a Pakistani security official, said Islamabad would press essential demands at the talks that Afghanistan take action against Islamic militias using its territory as a safe haven and a plan to attack on Pakistani soil. And it's not just obviously that it's not just government, it's a militia group within Afghanistan that conducts attacks on Pakistan within its territory as well. So there is also that here as well. So even the different tribes in Pakistan and Afghanistan are sometimes part of the same ethnic group, the region of a globe of a mixed mash of everything that walked the Silk Road. Yeah. So this is one of the things that the ball is more in Afghanistan's court rather than Pakistan's court when it comes to this border clashes, because of the terrorist group that the Taliban does have a sort of relationship with within its country that is on the border with Pakistan, that terrorizes within Pakistan, and that's what causes and because that's kind of what causes the problems there, because they cross over the border, cross over the border back and forth consistently, which is what's causing the conflicts, causing this tension that's been going on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's kind of just like the ball is really pretty much more in the Taliban government's court rather than Pakistan when it comes to resolving this issue here. It's not so much the Afghan government, the Taliban government in particular. It's more the terrorist group itself, the separate terrorist group in a part of this as on this, guys. Most of the issues between Pakistan and Afghanistan have been resolved successfully and peacefully. A few demands from Pakistan need some extra time as they are difficult to be agreed upon, say a source close to the Afghan Taliban delegation. Islamabad accuses the Taliban of harboring a Pakistani Taliban, a separate militia group hostile to Pakistan. Yep, this is the one I was talking about, allowing them to attack Pakistani troops from Afghan territory. Kabul denies this, saying it has no control over the group. And this is what Pakistan wants them to do, is actually deal with this group in particular. Sources decline to be named as they are not authorized to public commentary on the issue. The Afghan Taliban and Pakistan militia and Foreign Office did not immediately respond to a request for comment on this. In Kabul, Interior Minister Suri Jagan Haki, speaking at the meeting at the Interior Ministry in a video posted online, urges Pakistan to address its own internal security problems instead of creating tensions in Afghanistan, warning that doing so would cost them dearly. He also said Afghanistan has sought peaceful engagements with all countries, but would defend itself if attacked. Haqqani said the Taliban had demonstrated strength both in conflict and in dialogue, adding that Afghanistan wanted relations based on mutual respect. Dozens of people have been killed this month along the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, the worst such violence since the Taliban took power in Kabul in 2021. The October clashes began after Pakistan's airstrike earlier this month on Kabul, the Afghan capital, among other locations targeting the head of the Pakistani Taliban. The Afghan Taliban administration responded with attacks on the Pakistani military posts along the length of the 2,600 frontier, which remained closed. Both nations agreed to a ceasefire brokered in Doha on October the 19th, but could not find common ground in a second round of talks mediated by Turkey and Qatar in Istanbul. Afghan and Pakistani sources briefed on the issue told Reuters on Tuesday. And clashes between the Pakistani military and the Pakistani Taliban have continued throughout the ceasefire period, with multiple deaths reported on both sides on Sunday and Wednesday. Pakistan said on Thursday it had killed a deputy leader of the group in an operation near the Afghan border, a victory from Islamabad in the years-long insurgency it had been fighting. Kari Ahmed, who Pakistan described as a high-value target and who was designated as a terrorist by the United States, was killed in a clash after trying to cross into Pakistan from Afghanistan. The militia group confirmed his death. So, yeah, another conflict, unfortunately, that is still happening there as well. The last story I've got for you guys, switching gears, is one about the Mexican cartel. Now, actually, before I talk about the piece from the New York Times, I'm not going to share all the footage because it's too long, but I wanted to share some of this with you guys from DW documentary. And I think this documentary, even though it is 26 minutes long, and I'm going to play some of it here because I do want to share a bit of the history here about the war, the cartels, and why we're in the situation it is. And it's hard to understand how this it's hard on the face of it to understand why this has happened, and I do designate this as a conflict because it literally is Mexico in a kind of a civil war, because the government is consistently battling with the cartel over control of the country. But I'm going to play a little bit here because I do think this is worth listening to some of it here. But like I said, the link for the full video is in the description. I'm not going to be playing all of it, but I wanted to play some of it here.
The history of the drug wars begins here in the northwestern Sinaloa Mountains, better known as Mexico's breadbasket. Detached from the capital, this was a rural area with many farmers. By the early 20th century, opium, and especially heroin, a drug sold by German pharma company Bayer, was commonly sold as medicine. By the time it was banned in the US, millions of Americans were already addicted. Farmers in Sinaloa saw a business opportunity and began secretly growing opium poppies, which resourceful dealers turned into heroin for export.
That's because I didn't switch over. My apologies.
During the rock festival, hundreds of cases of drug overdose and excessive drinking were reported.
Marijuana followed, and the new black market in the U.S. made the Mexican narcos rich.
In the 1960s, maybe as a response to this counterculture with the boom in marijuana use, you get Richard Nixon, who starts what he calls the war on drugs.
America's public enemy number one is drug abuse.
That's because you guys made it illegal. What's happening in Mexico, I blame the US for, to a certain extent.
Part of this is the creation of the Drug Enforcement Administration, or the DEA, which increases the pressure on Mexico to do annual eradication campaigns. And this is because the United States has a lot of soft power against Mexico because it is its major trading partner, and they can use this as leverage to then push Mexico to pursue policies that the US wants.
But starting in the mid-1970s, the drug problem got worse. A new drug had appeared on the scene. Cocaine was produced in the Colombian Andes, where Pablo Escobar and his Medellin cartel controlled the market. He smuggled the cocaine in boats and on planes, from Colombia through the Caribbean to South Florida in the United States.
Like I said, I do recommend just go a bit more. I'll just show this little bit as well.
To this day, the state seems powerless. One player profited the most from this situation, the Sinaloa cartel. Active in more than 20 Mexican states, it controls key smuggling routes into the US. Its decentralized structure makes it difficult for authorities to track. The cartel's boss at the time was the now legendary El Chapo.
I actually covered this guy in a short. I've covered this guy in a short video when he actually got caught a fourth time. I'm not going to play all of it again, but like I said, this guy is so powerful that it wasn't a case of they paid off the prisoners and whatnot to get him out of prison. They literally dug a tunnel under the prison. They, the cartel, dug a tunnel under the prison to his exact cell to get him out. Not the other way round. And time and time again, people have died as a result of actions by the cartel. They have so much power that in this documentary, they at one point had arrested his son, and the cartel went on a killing spree in different parts of Mexico. Innocent people were dying, and there was literally warfare on the streets. And the cartel said they will stop if you give the son back. And the state backed down because they didn't want any more bloodshed. That's how unprecedented of power the cartel has. But they're so embedded into Mexico, it's impossible to eradicate it as of right now. How do you eradicate something that is so embedded into your society now? And you've had presidents who have been Mexican presidents and governments who have tried to be aggressive on the issue. They've had a president that was soft and tried to just build up the country, which didn't help either. There was, in this documentary, which is 3 weeks ago, talk about perhaps maybe even American intervention, a bit more intervention into help dealing with the drugs, which I don't think is going to happen, because I think they're eyeing more up on Venezuela right now rather than Mexico. But this kind of the life of certain, there are certain parts of Mexico where people are okay, but in particular, there are just people who are consistent. There are a lot of people who live in fear, who try to just live their lives and try not to get involved in it all. But there have been countless people who have just completely lost their lives, or people have disappeared for no reason whatsoever. Like I said, if you want to watch the rest of the video, the link will be in the description. And this is the piece from the New York Times here, which we're going to finish on here. So, on the front lines of a cartel war, funeral workers carry a city's grief. They arrive where the killing ends, retrieve bodies, comfort families, and bearing the emotional toll of a deadly struggle that shows no sign of stopping. I'm going to warn you now, the first picture we will see is of a dead body. Viewer's discretion is advised here, guys. So by the time Remy and Soko reached the crime scene, a wounded man was twitching, bloodied, and barely alive. A woman nearby collapsed to her knees, waiting, and a poster lay on the ground with a drug cartel warning, "You know who is next." Mr. Soto, though, showed no trace of emotion as the man went still. "He is dead," he said. "He is dead." Then he asked the sobbing woman if she was family and it needed funeral service. You right there, after someone just died in front of them, they asked that question. Hold on, let me just fix something. There we go. My apologies. You're going to ask this just after someone's just died. For quite fragility of funeral workers in Mexico's senior state, each day begins and ends with death. But what was once a dignified profession, they say, guided the bereaved through the disorientated maze that follows a death, now puts them at the center of the carnage engulfing the state. Warring factions and Senior Cartel, one of the world's worst powerful criminal groups, are vying for control of this multi-billion-dollar empire. The Mexican government, under intense pressure from the Trump administration, has begun an aggressive crackdown on the cartel too. Battle has sown chaos in the state, leaving more than 1,900 dead and 2,000 missing over the last year, according to official data. For the barely 30 funeral home workers of the state capital, Culiacan, the business of ferrying the dead, whether cartel gunmen or innocent people is caught in between, has never been busier or harder to bear. Quote, "I live alongside death day in, day out," said Jocelyn Narwin Garcia, an employee at the San Martin funeral home. "Not only do I see it every day, but I feel it too, the pain and tears in families who have lost their loved ones." In Seniolia, the workers rush from crime scenes and accident sites to hospitals and morgues, wherever death has struck. Although the authorities typically recover bodies, they sometimes ask the workers to help because there are too many scenes for them to manage alone. The workers then offer services at every step, delivering bodies from morgues to funeral homes, helping families with bureaucracy and paperwork, preparing corpses, arranging coffins, and performing burials and memorials. 14 years on the job, Mr. Garcia said. He has never seen anything like the past year for a sheer scale of violence. Just last month, he said, he and his colleagues recovered 262 bodies. Half of them victims of violent killings. At times, Mr. Garcia, a slender 40-year-old who wears a blue button-down shirt and suit pants on the job, can seem impervious to the region's scorching heat and the stench of death. But some days are harder than others, he said, and a few months ago, he was called to a scene where inside a bullet-ridden car, he found the slumped body of a father and two sons, one 14 and the other barely 8 years old. The police later told him that a cartel gunman had motioned for the father to stop, and in a panic he sped up instead. When he returned home that night, Mr. Garcia said he locked himself in the bathroom and cried, muffling the sound so that his wife and daughter would not hear. I don't know how someone is able to shut out the psychological bearings of dealing with that. How you can psychologically cope with that kind of thing. I think it's impossible to handle. I can't bear that. How psychologically you can cope with that. I understand, Soon Banker. Thanks for being here, for popping in. Appreciate it. It's brutal. It really, I just cannot imagine what is going through your mind every day, having to deal with this every day, collecting these bodies, knowing that that is the same thing over and over and over. And the thing is that some people who try to stop this or try to step up, some people, they just find themselves disappearing. Just like that. Like many colleagues, he tried leaving his job for short stretches, but he feels drawn, he says, to the adrenaline of the chase and the urgency of each death. As heavy as the psychological toll can be, the workers say they also find purpose, even solace in their duties, offering dignity to the families scarred by violence, as well as those mourning deaths from accidents and natural causes. The great satisfaction comes when a relative comes to me and says thank you. He looks so peaceful, as if he were only sleeping, said German Sabidia, a 55-year-old who works includes embalming bodies. It's not so bad when it's natural, because that's something is understandable. I think it's more when it's not the natural, when it's just the violence and the bullets, the blood and everything. But when it's natural, it's a lot more comforting. No matter the circumstances of death, he said, he tries to restore humanity to each body. Smoothing features, massaging faces, pushing mouths to hint a gentle smile. At least I can give them the small measure of relief, he said. The workers also guide families, often stunned and paralysed by grief, through the confusing legal paperwork and bureaucracy that follows death. I want to believe that I can help them in that way, at least a little bit, in the middle of all their plan, Mr. Garcia said on a recent night, waiting outside a hospital and scanning for families of a newly deceased potential clients. Though he also wonders when the bloodshed will end. It's enough pain already, he said. The funeral workers say that although the war has increased their monthly earnings by as much as a third, to about $1,000 from $730, the extra money comes with steep emotional cost. Quote, I would trade that money for feeling free and unafraid, said Javier Aragon, a 36-year-old who has worked at Emirates Funeral Home for 16 years. Victims of the cartel violence that include fathers, mothers, children on their way to school and teachers, among others. They have been found in canals, open fields, spewed on the asphalt and inside running cars. Bodies often bear the signs of torture, but many who are killed were simply bypassers at the wrong intersection of place and time. Each funeral worker carries the burden of his job in his own way. Some say numbness has crept in. Some speak of a mental and physical exhaustion that clings to the body. Some say they have learned to switch off emotionally entirely. Others confess that certain scenes still cut through, like one in which a mother was struck by a stray bullet while holding her baby. Many say the job simply must be done. It's a service somehow that has to provide, Mr. Agron said. We don't judge if they were good or bad. They were all people and all families need our service. Yeah, you don't think about that. A mix of learning to detach emotionally and counselling courses have helped them process the job's toll, he said. We are intermediaries between our companies and our families, he said. That is why we have empathy without absorbing their pain, because it is the process to go through, not ours. In the hardship of the job, the men have found a fellowship during any given week. They often spend more time together on the road, waiting outside morgues and hospitals, sometimes through 24-hour shifts, than with their families. Few carry the weight as personally as Guillermo Torres Rancho, 45, who started as a funeral worker when he was 18 years old. A decade ago, he was called to a car found submerged in a canal on the Culligan outskirts, a woman's body floating nearby. When he arrived, He did what he did what he had done countless times before, scanning the body for light causes of death. The first step before a search for any relative, but this time the body was not a stranger. It was not a stranger's. He was the relative. It was someone he knew. It was his younger sister who had gone missing 3 months earlier after leaving for a party with a friend. Her body had begun to disintegrate from weeks under the water, he recalled, but he recognised a small piece of black lace stitched by their mother into the armour garments where her daughter wore. He stood frozen, unable to move or speak, he recalled, and then he fainted. Miss Torres spent months in depression and left the funeral home. I wanted my own death, he recalled. I didn't want to deal with anyone else's. But after 9 years necessarily pulled him back, he needed a job and the funeral home was hiring. And he was back doing it again after what that was. One of many of hundreds of stories of what people go through. It's not... I can't bear the story, but this has not been easy to talk about. And I don't really talk a lot. I think I've only ever talked once or twice on my channel about the cartels. It is a very complicated situation, but innocent people consistently find themselves caught up in it, and it's even worse when it's youngsters. And no matter how much anger and frustration people have, and there is a great deal of anger and frustration, even when people turn to marching and protesting and frustration, demanding the government does more, they can only do so much. And it is, it's hard to take. One of the things I always say is trying to put yourself in the shoes of other people. And it's something very hard for anyone to do. And covering these stories today was uncomfortable. But it's also important to know that these things are still happening in the world, despite all the problems that you and I could be facing right now at home. These things are happening. It's very sad to know, but it's a reminder that we need our species as a whole to do more to help where we can. Some of these feels like impossible. I do believe that America can help solve this crisis to a certain extent inside Mexico. But do I trust this administration to do it? Absolutely not. But I do think more can be done here. So I know that was very brutal, and somehow I managed to get through this all within 1 hour and 30 minutes. I didn't really want to go further than that, but we have just about near half past there. And not a lot of people came to this live stream. And to be fair, considering the subjects we were going to be covering, I could understand some people not wanting to hear this. It is brutal to talk about this kind of stuff. It is brutal. But I appreciate everybody coming out of their way to watch this live stream, despite the fact it was hard to do so. So for those who have been here from start to finish, thank you very much for coming, for watching and for listening. I really do appreciate it. I don't expect many people to watch this back. I think they'd be, to be fair. But those who did come today, thank you. I appreciate it. And I don't know when I'm going to be doing another one of these. Looking at my calendar, I'm probably going to do... I'm not going to... If I do have a free Thursday, I'm not going to do this. I probably would do something else here. So I probably will do an live stream on America or something along those lines, guys. But no, appreciate it, guys. Thanks for those comments. I appreciate it. Yeah, it is very grim. It is very grim, but it's not easy to to talk about it. It's not easy to watch videos on it as well. It does hit me a little bit, but that's why I have other things to get out of it. You know, I do appreciate you guys giving your time for me tonight. I really do. So thank you guys for coming along. Thank you guys for all your comments. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll be back again live tomorrow at 11 a.m. So if you can join me for that show, feel free to do so. I'm not planning to do a Friday afternoon live stream because I have other things I need to get done, guys. But it is still something that I'm thinking about doing. Something that I'm considering. But enjoy the rest of the evening, whatever you guys are doing. And do check out the documentary that I linked below, the 25-minute one. I do recommend watching it, guys, if you haven't seen it in full. There will be some of it you may find disturbing, but I do recommend having a watch yourself. Sometimes just to take it from a different perspective. I do recommend checking out that video as well. But on your way out, if you can for me before you go, guys, please hit that like button. Please share this across social media. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Leave comments down on the live stream in the after box as well if you found this interesting and informative. And if you want to financially support me in the work that I do here, you can do so by leaving a super chat or becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.